here with me. I'm your host, Rosie Moss. Joining me today, I have got Caroline Booth. Now, some of you who are following this story in the press or on social media may be aware of Caroline and the campaign that she's currently heading up, which is a campaign to extend the support available to widowed, particularly parents we're talking about here, aren't we, Caroline?
Yeah, but both, yeah.
Both. Yeah. So basically, I'm going to let Caroline do the heavy lifting on this actually and tell you a little bit about what she's doing. But before we get into that, I thought it would be really nice, Caroline, if you just share a little bit about who you are, how you ended up in the club, because obviously you are a member of the Shit Club, aren't you?
I absolutely am, Rosie, yes.
Yeah.
So,
Card carrying member.
yeah, so me, I'm 45, I think. I think I've told people different ages because I wasn't quite sure how old I was. Sometimes you've got to think, haven't you? But yeah, I lost
Do you know
my
what? I like
husband last
widow
May.
brain.
Yeah, widow brain. In May 2025, I lost my husband, Steve, and I was 44. I was just about to turn 45 a week after that. And we'd been together since I was 16. Since I had my first job after leaving school, he was the person that took me for my GCSE results. We'd been together,
Yes.
no forever. And yeah, he was fit, he was a bit older than me, 52, but fit and healthy, didn't drink, didn't smoke, did everything right. We've both worked all our lives since, when I met, and yeah, worked hard. I'd probably say we were workaholics, if anything. Built a really successful life, had two kids, and everything were fine. Everything were great. We were living our best life. And in 2024, he just had a bit of stomach ache. And, then it turned out to be bowel cancer, and it was in his colon. And yeah, but we got told everything was going to be okay. Had his operation, had some sort of preventative chemotherapy, and then after that round, it had come back and it was in lots and lots of different places. So we were fully expecting everything to be absolutely fine. So we got told in October 24, the day before October half term, actually, that it wasn't fine. We were told probably 2 years, but obviously it didn't last 2 years. I think he I don't know how many months it was. I want to say 8, but yeah, he passed away in May, and it wasn't. And so that's how I've ended up in this club. We've got two boys. They were 13 and 16 at the time. So yeah, 14 and 16 still now. My eldest is going 17 this weekend. Steve actually died the day before Matthew, my eldest, did his first GCSE. So he had to go sit his GCSE the day after. So that's how I've ended up here in the club, Rosie.
Do you know what? I don't think I realised that you were quite such a sort of relatively fresh member of the club.
Yeah, May
So
last year, yeah.
less than a year. And, as I alluded to earlier, the work that you're doing now around supporting other widows to have found the energy for starters, but also that
Mhm.
kind of determination to do something to make the world a little bit kinder. I've got to say, it's pretty impressive stuff.
Oh,
I was
thank
still hugging a bottle of gin at the stage you're at now in widowhood.
Yeah, well, I cannot stand seeing something when it's like an injustice, and this is
Yes.
absolutely nothing to do with me. And when you just assume that when you've contributed all your life, you've worked hard, I've never claimed a thing, not even child benefit, and you just think, how have I ended up in this position overnight? And it
Mm,
made me angry. It really made me angry, and I didn't know the rules had changed at all because I think it was one of those things that it was just sort of silently crept in. It was underreported. It had silently crept in, and you don't realise that at the time. And then I got even more cross because I found out about it accidentally. I'm like, how on earth is there no duty to tell people this? I mean, I am
yeah.
quite fortunate myself, and I've got good mental health, really good support network around me. But absolutely, I'm thinking, some people in this position aren't going to sit there Googling what support's available.
No.
Or, when you go to the registrar and register a death, you would expect that it would be mandatory that they would have
Yeah.
to tell you that bereavement support payment exists, but it just isn't. And it was a passing comment from the funeral director. And then I've heard so many people saying the same thing, like, I didn't know, there's only 3 months to claim it. I've missed out. My friend had to tell me about it. The funeral director had to tell me about it. And so that was making me cross as well. So the fact the rules had changed and the fact that you have to accidentally find out. And
And claim in 3 months at a point when you are absolutely on your knees, when the world is the most confusing, terrifying place you've ever been, and you're meant to find out about. And also, there's an element of, I don't know, going after financial support in that stage. Like that's the last thing on your mind. But of
Absolutely.
course, and I'm speaking to for my own experience here. Ben was the primary earner. I'd always worked throughout our marriage, but I'd been lucky enough to be able to be at home with the children. Excuse
Mhm.
me. And I had a part-time job at the time. I was on maternity leave from it. But I had, and I can't remember the exact figure, but around 50 quid in my bank account
Wow.
because I was on that statutory maternity pay. And suddenly, overnight, the earner of our family had gone. So the bank accounts were locked down. I couldn't access the business accounts. And you feel like you have just been thrown to the wolves almost.
That
You know, where is that safety net?
Well, it's not there anymore, is it? I mean, absolutely, you feel isolated, you feel abandoned, and you're like, how can this be? We're meant to be a first world country, and we're the least supportive country in the developed world when it comes to this issue. You're absolutely abandoned and isolated, and so yeah, if anything, it just made me cross and it made me determined to fight it. I mean, and then as well, not only having to find out by accident, but then to get the money, you have to go down to the job centre. I've never been to a job centre in my life. It was really daunting. It's the last thing you want to do is start finding your marriage certificate up the loft.
Yeah.
To get this money, you've got to go find it, dig around in your papers, go to the job centre, be surrounded by security guards, and I'm thinking this is just not on. It's not on
No,
at all. And
it's not.
the people at the job centre are saying, "What are you even doing here? Why are you
Yeah.
here? You shouldn't be here. It shouldn't be like this." And the staff at the DWP are even agreeing, and they're emailing into the campaign, the DWP staff.
Are they?
Yeah,
That is fantastic. But this is the thing, and I know it's with that kind of 3-month window as well, it's almost like we're being set up to fail
absolutely.
because,
It's like they don't want you to find out. It's like they don't
yeah.
want you to even know it exists.
And let's just give some figures for a minute. So the law changed in 2017, right? Because I remember this because my dad's a journalist, so he was brilliant when my husband died. He was ringing CEOs of Land Rover trying to get them to take the car. He dealt with a lot of the kind of
Yeah,
really painful admin. And he found this, and without going into kind of all my story, but Ben's body has never been found.
right.
So I had to wait quite a long time for a presumption of death certificate. So then they're saying, well, I can't claim within 3 months because I haven't got a death
Because you haven't got it.
certificate. But actually, what I could do is start the claim, and then I was eligible. But let's talk figures. So let's use us as an example. Okay, so we're mums. Our spouse has died. We've got dependent children,
Yep.
and you get a lump sum payment, don't you? And then 18 months of quite a, it's not insignificant, but it's not a life changing amount of
No,
money.
no, it's not. And the thing with that as well, that I'm like, that's just so wrong because it's the only benefit that's not been uprated since it was introduced in 2017. Every single other benefit's been uprated in line with inflation. And not only that, when the government consulted on changing the bereavement support at the end of 2011. So it came in 2017, but they consulted on it in 2011 stroke 12, and it was from December 2011 till March 2012. So it was a really small window. And like I said, underreported. It's like they almost don't want you to find out. They've almost like ushered it in. And this consultation was 12 weeks, and there were 75 responses to that. So that just shows how much people just didn't know it was happening. There were
No.
75 responses to a national consultation, most of which were charities and things objecting, like Widowed and Young. And so you just think, and the figures in that consultation as well were pretty much copied and pasted into the Pensions Act 2014, which then brought it in 2017. So actually, when we're saying it's not been uprated since 2017, it actually was based on the consultation year of 2011. So really, it's 15 years out of date.
And
And
we all know what inflation's done in that time. We've all seen the cost of a week's grocery shopping, right?
yeah,
Life doesn't look the same anymore.
absolutely, it's worth over a third. It's gone down in value more than probably about
Yeah.
35%. And that's from 2017. I've not even worked out what it would be if you looked back to 2011. So yeah, I
And the
just
other
think it's
thing,
shocking.
and I'll tell you a story, Caroline. I went to the job centre myself, went to Sittingbourne, not a place you want to frequent unless you have to. No offence to my Sittingbourne listeners. And I remember coming out and I text a friend of mine and I said, they've agreed it. This is amazing. Do you know what? I think I'm going to take my kids away at Christmas. And this friend, who I don't speak to anymore, replied, I'm sure the taxpayers will be delighted that's what you're spending their money on. So let's unpick that.
Yeah.
For the uninitiated out there, it is not paid for by the general taxpayer, is it?
No, not at all. So it is a contributory benefit. So I know full well national insurance is not an individual pot. I know that. But it is a sort of social security. You know, it's like a national insurance. It is. That's what it's there for social security, for life events. And you're only entitled to it if your partner's contributed. So like other things that it, you know, is there for, like maternity, sickness, job seekers allowance. I mean, none of them are either means tested as well. So, you know, you wouldn't say that someone can't go on job seekers allowance just because they've lost a well-paid job, for example.
Yeah.
You know,
We can't
your
have
pension,
paternity.
you wouldn't get to pension age and say, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, I now own my house, or I've inherited some money off my parents, I won't draw my state pension then. None of these benefits that
No.
are paid by national insurance are means tested, and they're all contributory. So no, it's absolutely not. And you know what Steve paid in national insurance in the last 8 months of his life, from finding out that October that I said to May when he passed away, is more than I will ever get in bereavement support payments. And he's paid in over 450 grand in his working life in national insurance. And the amount that people will get as well from bereavement support compared to what you would have got under the old rules can be something up to 100 and over £100,000 difference. So they're significant figures, and I just don't get where they pluck them out of thin air, and they don't mean anything. 18 months doesn't mean anything, and the figures don't mean anything. They seem just made up.
Because, I'm thinking my daughter was 6 months old. So I would have been eligible for support right up until her 18th
Yeah,
birthday.
potentially longer if she'd stayed in full-time education, Rosie, yeah.
So that's an enormous drop in support that I've received for her. And,
Huge.
because my husband had the audacity to die sort of 6 months after the
Mm.
deadline. Rude.
Yeah, absolutely. And their excuse as well there, Rosie, is they said they wanted to simplify it and modernise it, but I think that's just an
Feels like
excuse
code.
really. And but they also said as well, because they kind of reneged on their promise really, because when they were consulting in 2011-12, they said that the aim of sort of it was to modernize it and to make it broader. Yeah, I appreciate maybe more people get it now. That's not what we're saying, but they said it was not to cut costs. And they actually said in the consultation that the aim of it was not to reduce the amount spent on bereavement support. So if they're not aiming to reduce the amount spent, why are they saving £100 million a year on? That's how much they're saving under the new system, and 75% of people are worse off. Even though I do understand that it's possibly well, it is broader. You know, more people are entitled. I do understand that, but 75% of people are worse off still. And they're saving
And
£100 million a year, which must be worth £135 million a year now. And they said that that's not what they would do. They said they would reinvest it, and it wasn't, you know, they weren't going to save money on bereavement support. And the birth rates have gone down significantly since 2017 with COVID and everything.
I wonder as well if, because we are quite an underrepresented group, and unless somebody like you, or I cannot remember the name of the lady from Way who took on the married parents issue, because a bit
Yeah.
prior to this, even if you had a child together, you weren't eligible for any support.
Mm.
And without people like you kind of taking this fight and going with it, really channeling all that anger, all that kind of frustration with how life turned out, then things probably wouldn't change, because we are not a group of people that have got that sort of resilience, particularly not in the early days of grief, where we can take on a massive challenge.
Well, there's a word for it, it's bullying, isn't it? We're vulnerable group, we're a
Mm,
small group, you know, we're small in number, we're vulnerable, and the word is bullying. And, you know, we're not big vote winners, there's not enough of us to make a difference. So, but when it comes to, like, for example, lifting the two-child cap, because that's another thing, that was the two-child cap was put in place in 2017. And so they've figured out at the same time that came in April 2017, at the same time as BSP came in. And so they've kind of realised that that was wrong and that was affecting children. So they've lifted that two-child cap, and that will affect millions of people. And well, I don't know if it'll do Labour good or not. Time will tell, because I know there's two sides to that views. However, you know, I totally get it. I totally agree with it. I don't disagree with that. But why not then apply the same logic
yeah,
to bereaved families? You know, what about the death cap, you know, that was introduced? I call it the death cap that was introduced in 2017. They've not lifted that. They've lifted the two-child benefit cap for universal
the
credit.
death
And
cap.
it's just wrong. It's just wrong. They've recognised that that was wrong, the two-child cap. They've recognised that not paying it to unmarried couples was wrong. Well, they've been forced to by the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
They weren't going to admit it themselves. But, the Supreme Court found that it engaged children's rights because BSP, even though they're saying it's not really anything to do with children, because it was paid at two rates and people with children got the higher rate, the Supreme Court found that it does. BSP engages children's rights. And therefore, if it engages children's rights, how on earth can they not operate it? And, you know, it's just wrong.
And there's other complications with it as well. And I can't go into all the kind of all of the technicalities of it because my brain won't cope. But universal credit's affected as well. So if you are lucky enough, and I use that term very loosely, to be eligible for the support, it will affect any other benefits you get as well. So they reduce down, don't they? So for a lot of people, it's like this kind of, I don't know, like a tantalizing, it's just out of their reach. And it
Absolutely.
feels and a lot of people perhaps will end up on benefits as widows that might not have been.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then they're finding that they're eligible for one, but not with the other. And it's almost like, why are they not eligible for that little bit? And it is only a little bit more to help because we have to pay for any childcare. We have to work because who else, right?
Yeah.
All the, feeding these damn children, right? My kids are eating me out of house and home.
Yeah.
Raising children in this current climate is incredibly expensive. And it's even more expensive if there's only one of you.
Absolutely. I mean, it's the difference between solo parenting and co-parenting, isn't it? And we
Yes.
talk about that quite a bit. And yeah, in relation to universal credit, I mean, it's another one where there's sort of some discrimination and disparity because, as a divorced parent, like if I were divorced and Steve was in another house, he could pay me maintenance indefinitely forever, and that wouldn't be taken into account for universal credit. So how is that fair? It's discriminating as well against, solo parents. And yeah, well, there's so many things that discriminate against solo parents. Obviously, you only get one person allowance. And then as you try and build your life back up, the universal credit tapers off. So as you start going back to work, or if you do, and start earning more to compensate for some of that loss of salary, your universal credit just gets taken away. You only get one personal allowance. And then and if you did start earning more, your child benefit tapers off. Whereas divorced people could have both earned 59 grand a year in two different
Yeah.
houses and get full child benefit. We don't get any of them right. We get 25% council tax reduction. I mean, my son's going to be 18 next year, so I'll lose that. He ain't going to be working.
Oh,
He'll be
yeah.
going and doing something else. I'm still not going to, 25%, not 50%. Your insurance goes up because you're classed as more at risk if you live on your own. You're more likely to burn your house down. There's not two of you looking after it. Your car
Mhm.
insurance goes up because you're doing all the driving. And they're just clueless. No, they just don't. The people that are putting these policies in place just do not know these things or don't want to think about them.
It's almost like it's almost like there's an element of, well, tough shit,
Yeah,
the shit happens,
yeah.
and actually that isn't good enough.
Well, the thing is as well, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer all over their Facebook every single day. Keir Starmer says, "I know what it was like to grow up in a child's household where my parents couldn't afford to pay the bills." Rachel Reeves says in every speech she does, children should not bear the brunt of, and she used bereavement, loss of a parent as one of her examples, and lots of other things. But she says these things every single day. She says, "I won't stand for it. I will not preside over a government where children bear the brunt of circumstances beyond their control, like the death of a parent." And then she does
Mm.
nothing about it. Nothing.
It's just words, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just
It's
words. Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
So what does your campaign look like? How did it start? What, I mean, you've said that there was this kind of injustice trigger went off in you, and as you were talking, I was like, yeah, we always need someone to be angry. You can't be angry with the cancer because you can't. You got to pick
Um,
something. So
yeah.
you've taken this fight. Have you? How did you get people involved? How did it all kind of take
No,
off?
I can't even really answer that question, Rosie. It kind of happened. For some reason, one day I was so cross. I thought I'm going to do a petition. Didn't know what I was doing. Filled it in, and then I was cross because I had to wait about 6 weeks for them to process it. And then it went live. I published it, and within about 2 hours, there was lots of outraged people in
Hmm.
the same, mad state and outrage as me, contacting me saying, "Yeah, let's do this." And now there's like a big gang of about 25 of us, running Widows Fight that are all outraged.
Ready to storm Parliament
Yeah.
at a
Oh, we
given
will.
moment's
If
notice.
we have to, we will. Yeah.
How have you found the kind of general public perception? Because, like you, I didn't know this existed. Most people will kind of, I guess, go around with a kind of blissful ignorance that if the worst happens,
Mhm.
the state will step in, there'll be support.
Yeah.
So have people been quite open to it? If you found a lot of support in the non-widowed community?
100%. I think
Mm,
people appreciate once they understand that it's from national insurance, it's a contributory benefit, and that things have changed so drastically. I think people have a lot of support for people that have paid in all their lives, and people think that that is who the country should be supporting. I mean, in 2017, there was a debate in the House of Lords the week before it came in because they put in like a cross parliamentary letter. Um, because a lot of people disagreed with this coming in. So they tried to do like a last minute attempt to get them to rethink. And the guy that was running this sort of cross parliamentary thing to kind of stop it going through basically said the public at large will not understand why we're doing this. The public at large in this country will want to support this group of people that have paid in all their lives, and they will not understand why you're doing this. They were saying this to the opposition government,
mm,
and they were saying we're making a mistake, we're targeting the wrong people. So people absolutely get it because I think people know it could be them. I think,
yeah,
once people understand the reasoning behind it, yeah, everyone absolutely gets it. I mean, I do absolutely understand that there are other situations where people can be solo parenting other than bereavement. I've had a few people saying, "What do you think about if we've been abandonment or flee from domestic violence?" Absolutely, they should be entitled to support. I mean, it just unfortunately don't fall under this legislation, but I don't disagree
no.
with them at all.
And
And
you've got to pick your fight and stay in your lane, haven't you? We can't fight for everybody all the
no,
time.
no, but I don't disagree with them. And then the other thing that really wound me up as well is when so Daniel, I can never say Daniel's last name, that fought the disability
Hmm.
side, because obviously when his wife passed away, she hadn't been entitled. She hadn't paid any national insurance because she hadn't been able to work. So Daniel wasn't entitled, and it went through two courts, and he won, and then it went to the Supreme Court, and he lost. I think they might be taking it further now. I'm not sure to the European Court. I don't really know, but so I've even spoke to him, and yeah, I totally get that. I know it's a contributory right, but not giving it to people that are genuinely disabled that haven't been able to contribute is
Yeah.
also discrimination. So I agree with that as well. So, but they're the kind of comments we've had, and I don't disagree with any of them. But definitely, people are on board.
Yeah, and I think again, it is that kind of big distinction between the I can't say the word contributory.
Yeah,
Can't say
it's
that.
hard
You
to
know what I'm
say,
trying
isn't
to
it?
say.
Yeah,
Yeah, that kind of makes people think, oh, okay. But also, I'm wondering if the fact that it's a campaign spearheaded by young widows, because that brings it into people's realities. We
yeah,
all have that image of a widow, and it's not you and I. Whereas when you see somebody like us saying, actually, this happened to me, and it really, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, guys, but it really could happen to you. It makes people think, and you look at your kids and you think, shit, actually, would I? How long could I pay my mortgage for if my husband died? Have I got enough savings? Have I got things like
yeah.
life insurance? And yes, I'm sure there'll be a section of people that say, well, you should have life insurance for this eventuality. Yeah, we should. We know this, but not everybody does.
Not everyone does, and not everyone can. And even
No
And
pre-existing
there's
illness,
been
right?
so many people contact me saying people shouldn't say that because they don't know I couldn't get it because, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of examples like that. Or people just can't simply afford it. It's not cheap.
yeah. Or
And
it's not on your radar because you don't think that the love of your life is going to drop dead in their
absolutely
30th.
not. And the thing there is as well, Rosie, that is personal choice. And I think that sits outside of this. And even people that do have life insurance have said, well, it's gone within 2 years because
Yeah,
I wasn't fit to work. I had to
yeah,
reduce my hours. Like I had to walk out of my job to care for Steve for 18 months. So I wasn't earning at all. Do you know what I mean? I'd gone from being a high earner to earning nothing when he passed
yeah.
away because I'd walked out of my job to care for him. So people don't know your situation. And even the
No.
people that have got life insurance have said it goes very quickly,
Mm.
or you
Yeah,
might feel you need to
mortgage.
compensate, and so you overspend, and then it
Yeah,
doesn't last, does it? And also you should be entitled to keep some of that as well because your future stability is gone. Like
yeah.
you should be able to put 20 grand in bank so you can put your kids through uni, or
But you
so you can
lose your
pay for the marriage,
benefits,
because
don't you?
or you can put that towards your retirement because your future stability is gone as well. And there should be a capital disregard as well because so many people are not entitled to universal credit because they've got modest
Yeah.
amounts of life insurance, and that is also wrong.
And it's £6,000, isn't it, that renders you eligible for universal
Yeah,
credit? So
it's
that's
it's not a lot.
No, it's not. And I was thinking about this and how, people might have had savings together,
Mhm.
for, say, for university, for a holiday, to move house. And then suddenly it's a bit like, and I don't know if this is comparable, but when people have to sell their homes to go into supported living and retirement places, all this money that you've saved and put to one side suddenly has to be used to literally pay the
Yeah,
bills, keep the lights on.
yeah,
So you're not only kind of causing that immediacy of uncertainty and instability, it's also the future. And you
absolutely.
talk about the impact on the children. It's of course it's going to impact children.
Yeah, and the long-term stability, again, people have said is more worrying than the immediate
Yeah,
term. And that's another
yeah.
reason why 18 months is just so wrong.
No, because in 18 months, very few of us have got a handle on things, and very few of us are kind of, gearing up to go straight back into work. It just
Mm.
everything changes, and I do think that's something that is fundamentally misunderstood about widowhood.
Yeah, and
Any bereavement
and
the
widows'
chat is
parents'
challenging.
allowance absolutely understood that. When the old
Mm,
system, widows' parents' allowance understood that there was a long-term need for it, and they've changed it to, it's just to cover the short-term costs. It's not even meant to help with kids, or it's not even meant to help cover anything. It's just for the immediate short-term costs, and I think it's just disproportionate, and it's just it's whatever you call it, a legitimate breach of expectation on what the public would expect from what they've put
yeah,
in because it's so drastic. It's so disproportionate.
and the lump sum, it's what is it? Is it it's under £4,000,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's about three and a
3,000
half.
something.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking funeral costs,
Mm.
right? I think the headstone cost me about 2 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't even pay for half of the funeral. I mean, and I know they're saying that, certain situations you can claim extra for funerals as well if you've got under a certain amount. I'm not sure what the rules are there, but again, most people can't, and the vast majority of people have used that lump sum and more that I've spoke to towards the funeral. So it doesn't cover any extra costs. And even if it did, it's worth nearly 40% less than it was in 2017 anyway.
So what's your plan of action? What happens now? You've got how many signatures are you up to on your
So we're up to
petition?
21,000. It has slowed
Amazing.
down, so we do need all the support we can get. The plan of action is we just need people in areas where we've not targeted. There's a map on the petition. You can see where the areas we need to get some more supporters. So we just would love people to follow the Widows Fight social media pages and get involved and yeah, help spread the word, help spread the petition link, help get more signatures because all we need is another 25 of us in them, another 25 areas, and it will make a huge difference. And so that writing to MPs, that's making a huge difference. We're getting a lot of letters to MPs, and that will make them listen. And yeah, so maybe just and spreading the word really. News articles, case stories. We're making a reel. We're releasing a single.
You're
We
not.
are. Well, hopefully, we've.
Are you singing?
I'm not singing. No,
What's the song?
it's
Or
called
is it secret?
it's called Warrior, but it's yeah. I can't say any more yet.
Oh my goodness, this is so exciting. Well, I absolutely will put in the show notes links to the website,
Fabulous.
socials, and to the petition itself. And I guess that's a kind of call to action to our tribe, isn't it? If
Yeah,
you're listening and you haven't seen this, go and have a little look. I've got a template letter. If anybody wants it, you can send to your MP. Just need to alter a few bits on it. I'm sure you've got something like that
yeah, we
as
do.
well that you
Yeah.
can share. Yeah. So essentially, what we're hoping, or what you're hoping, is that enough people get behind us and support us. And how many signatures do you need to make change happen?
Well, we've already gone over 10,000, so they have to do a response, which
Mhm.
hopefully will come within the next week or two. Um, but from what we've seen from the previous, because the thing is as well, people have fought this since it came in. It's not something new. But the responses we've got so far are just so out of. They're not right. Do you know what I mean? It basically says, well, when after 18 months, go claim universal credit. That's their answer to everything.
Yeah.
So a few of us have met with our MPs and said we do not want that same stock standard answer this time. Whether we will get that, I don't know. But the way to kind of make a difference is get 100,000 and get a debate in Parliament and keep knocking on the doors of MPs and making ourselves heard. Really, so
Yeah.
that's what we need to do. We need more people on
Squeaky
board.
wheel. That's what we've got to be. Squeaky wheel. I
Yeah.
find that in any dealings with any kind of government or local government body, just be as annoying as you
That's
possibly
what we need to
can.
do, just annoy them that much
Yeah.
that they listen.
Well, Caroline, Thank you very much for coming on to talk to me today. I know that you are a very busy woman. I keep seeing you popping up on my social media feed all over the place. And once again, I just want to kind of take my metaphorical hat off to you and thank you on behalf of the widow community for what you're doing, you and your tribe of widows. If there's anything I can ever do to help support you, please do let me know.
Thank
And
you.
anybody listening out there, if you want to get involved with Caroline, if you want to help, if you want to be part of this campaign for change, you can reach out to me or you can reach out to Caroline. Just give us your socials one more time, Caroline.
So it's Widows Fight UK. I can't tell you how to find it, but if you search for Widows Fight on Instagram and
It'll
Facebook,
catch up.
yeah, you'll find us.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you wanted to add while I've got you?
No, I don't think so. Just thank you so much for having us, and thanks for helping us spread the word, Rosie. We really appreciate it, and yeah, we just want everyone to get behind us, please, and help us get there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Caroline. It's been an absolute pleasure. You take care of yourself and the best of luck as you go.
Thank you, Rosie.
And for everybody else listening out there, if you've been affected by today's episode, you know what to do. You can reach me at widowed_AF on Instagram. And I do have a Facebook page that's quite active now. So if you want to come and see me over there, please do. But for now, you take care of yourselves. I'll be back with you soon with another story from the forefront of widowhood. Bye bye. Thank you for listening. If you found this episode helpful, hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you think someone else may benefit from this, please do share. We'd also really appreciate a quick review. It helps more people find the show. Thank you again and see you next time on Widowed AF.